She checks over her shoulder before every car door now. Tonight, someone is counting on it. Jade Muller runs the top floor of one of Seoul's most powerful companies. She is black, brilliant, impossible to rattle. The only person who tells her boss no. But for 3 weeks, messages have come from an unknown number. You still wear the same perfume? She knows exactly who is writing. Her ex, the man she crossed an ocean to escape. She tells no one. Not the police, not her best friend, and not the man behind the glass wall. Kang Min-jae, the young company president with a blade inked on his neck and a world no one at that office suspects. One night, a meeting runs late. She takes the garage alone. A hand closes on her arm in the dark. But she doesn't know whose black car is parked 11 bays away. She doesn't know who's already watching. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Jade Muller flipped her phone face down before the screen finished lighting. She already knew the shape of it. Unknown number. 3 weeks of unknown numbers. She slid it into the inside pocket of her bag, the one with the zipper, and kept typing. The president's Thursday had 4 meetings, and one she'd already killed without asking him. On the far side of the glass wall, Kang Min-jae signed something without reading it and looked up. He looked at her too long. "The song lunch is gone," she said through the intercom. "You had a conflict." "I didn't have a conflict. You do now." A pause. Then the corner of his mouth moved and he went back to the page. That was the whole argument. It was the only argument anyone in the building was allowed to win with him, and only she was allowed to have it. At 6:17 she left. She used to leave at 7. Nobody had asked why the number changed, except the man behind the glass, who asked nothing and noticed everything. The train home was ordinary. That was the problem with the messages. They made ordinary things feel like teeth. You still wear the same perfume. She'd read that one standing on this exact platform. Your hair is different. She'd read that one in her own kitchen, with the blinds already down. You always look back before you get in the car. She'd read that one and understood that he was close enough to see her do it. She knew the sender. She'd known from the first line. Daniel wrote the way he'd always talked. Gentle, patient, certain he was owed an answer. At home, she checked the door twice. She made dinner and didn't eat it. She turned the music up because silence had started to sound like footsteps, and she sang badly over a pan of vegetables until the fear loosened enough to let her sleep. She told no one. Telling Sophia meant Sophia's face changing. Telling the police meant a report, a paper trail, a version of her life she'd spent 2 years burying. Telling Min-jae meant standing in front of the most composed man she'd ever met and admitting she was afraid of a man half his size. So she smiled. She was very good at smiling. The next night, the office didn't cooperate. The board ran past 11. Investors from Busan, a translator, catering nobody touched. Jade managed the room the way she managed everything, quietly, before anyone noticed it needed managing. When it finally broke, Sophia caught her arm by the elevators. "Let the driver take you. I'm 10 minutes away." "That's not what I asked." "I'm fine, Sophia." The word came out smooth. It always did. She rode down alone. Level B3. The garage swallowed the elevator chime and gave nothing back. White fluorescent light, long rows of dark cars, wide empty concrete between them. Her heels marked the distance. She counted bays the way she counted everything now. Behind her, another door opened. She didn't turn. She told herself it was a driver, a cleaner, anyone. She walked faster. The footsteps behind her walked faster. She slowed at a pillar, pretending to find her keys. The footsteps slowed. Her car was 11 bays out. She'd never parked it that far before. She reached it, thumb on the fob, and a hand closed over her forearm before the lock clicked. She turned. Daniel smiled at her like a man greeting a girlfriend at an airport. You really thought you could just disappear. Every rehearsed calm went out of her at once. Let go. I crossed half the world to talk to you. He said it warmly, as if it explained everything, as if the distance were a gift she'd been rude not to acknowledge. His hand didn't move. I didn't ask you to come. His fingers tightened, not enough to bruise, enough to say he could. You never listen when you're like this. She looked past him, out of habit, the reflex he'd mocked in the messages, looking back before the car. 11 bays down, under the dead white light, a black car sat with its engine off. She hadn't seen anyone get out, she hadn't seen anyone get in. Then another voice came from behind Daniel, low, unhurried. She asked you to let go of her. Daniel turned. Kang Min-jae stood a few meters back, hands loose at his sides, no guards, no phone, jacket open at the collar. Under the fluorescent light, the black mark on the left side of his neck showed and vanished as he stepped closer, a blade crossing water, there and gone. Daniel measured the suit and found only a suit. He almost laughed. And who are you? Min-jae looked first at the hand on Jade's arm, then without hurry, at Daniel's face. The man offering you a chance to take your hand off her. For a moment, nobody moved. The garage hummed. Jade felt Daniel's grip loosen finger by finger, less from fear than from a calculation he couldn't finish. This stranger wasn't afraid of him, and Daniel had never once, in his life, met a man who wasn't a little afraid of him. His hand fell away. We were talking, Daniel said, still smiling, already backing toward the ramp. That's all. Old friends. He didn't wait for an answer. He walked. His footsteps climbed the concrete and thinned into nothing. Jade stood very still against the cold door of her car. Min-jae didn't ask if she was all right. He looked at her hands, and then he saw it. The thing no one at Mirren Holdings had seen in almost 2 years. She was shaking. The elevator doors closed on the two of them, and the garage fell away. Min-jae watched the floor numbers climb. Jade watched them too, because it was easier than watching him. Her arms were crossed tight, one hand still gripping the strap of her bag. The cold of the concrete had followed her in. He shrugged out of his jacket and held it out. She looked at it. You're cold, was all he said. She took it. It was warm from him and heavier than it looked, and she pulled it around her shoulders and hated how much better she felt. The floor numbers kept climbing. He didn't ask the question. That was the strange part, the part she kept waiting for and couldn't make happen. Daniel would have already asked. Daniel would have asked who, and how long, and why she hadn't told him, and by the third question, the answers would have stopped being hers. The doors opened on the executive floor. She stepped out first. He followed. You're not going to ask who he was, she said. Min-jae stopped by her desk, where the lamp she never turned off threw a small pool of gold across her keyboard. No. Why not? When you want me to know, you'll tell me. He said it the way he canceled a meeting. Final, unremarkable, done. Then he went into his office and left the door open, and after a while she realized the open door was the whole message. I'm here. Come or don't. She sat at her desk in his jacket and, for the first time in 3 weeks, cried without checking who might see. He never mentioned it. In the days that followed, small things changed, and none of them asked anything of her. A driver appeared in the lobby at the end of her shift, parked, patient, never insisting. She could use him or walk past him. Twice she walked past him, and no one commented, and the driver was there again the next night anyway. Once, near midnight, she found Min Jae still at his desk, with the city burning cold and blue behind the glass, and she took the coffee out of his hand without asking and poured it out. You've slept how many hours this week? Enough. You touched the desk twice when you lie. She set the empty cup down. You just did it. He looked at his own hand as if it had betrayed him. Then he laughed, a real one, short and surprised, and something in the room shifted that neither of them named. She started organizing his life again, like it was hers to organize. Even on the mornings, she was furious with him for reasons she couldn't explain. It felt like standing on ground that didn't move. Then Daniel disappeared. She noticed the absence the way you notice a sound stopping. No message for 2 days, no number, unknown or otherwise. The silence should have been relief. It felt like a held breath. On the third morning, she walked into Min Jae's office without knocking, which was allowed, and put both hands flat on his desk, which was not. What did you do to him? Min Jae looked up from a stack of port contracts. Nothing. Don't. I did nothing, Jade. He doesn't just. Stop. Her voice cracked on the word. Men like him don't stop. Somebody made him stop. Min Jae set down his pen. He held her eyes, and there was no defense in his face, only a flat certainty that was worse than any denial. If I had done something, he said, you wouldn't need to ask. She believed him. That was the terrible part. She believed him, and it meant she was wrong about who was moving the pieces. The answer came that afternoon. Seo Jin brought it himself, which he only did when the news was bad enough to keep off a screen. Daniel had turned up at a clinic near the river. Cracked ribs, a split brow, one hand in a cast. He was alive. He was talking to no one. And pinned to the jacket he'd been wearing, in block letters someone had pressed hard enough to tear the paper, was a note. Stay away from the girl. Jade read it over Seo Jin's shoulder and felt the floor tilt. That's not Daniel's, she said. Daniel doesn't warn people. He is the warning. Min Jae took the photograph of the note from Seo Jin's hand and studied it a long time. When he spoke, it wasn't to her. I didn't send this. Seo Jin's jaw was tight. I know. Then someone else did. Min Jae set the photo down with a care that made it worse than if he'd thrown it. Someone who wants Daniel Foster away from her badly enough to break both his hands. And who calls her the girl. Like she belongs to a conversation we're not in. The lamp on Jade's desk glowed through the open office door behind her. She looked at the two men and understood, slowly, that the shape of her fear had just changed. For 3 weeks she'd been running from one man. Seo Jin said the thing none of them wanted said. He didn't find her by accident. Someone gave him her schedule. He looked at Jade and then at Min Jae and lowered his voice as if the walls could carry it. Her real hours, the garage, the nights she skips the driver. That came from inside this building. The file Seo Jin pulled had her father's name on it. Jade read it standing in the underground archive of Miron Holdings, in a narrow aisle of old boxes and low amber light, and the name stopped her breath. Raymond Mueller, an auditor, dead 6 years. She had a photograph of him on her refrigerator, and no idea his name lived in a box beneath the building where she answered phones. He worked for an international firm, Seo Jin said. They investigated laundering through Asian conglomerates. 20 years ago. He didn't touch the page. One of the files references the Kang family. She turned the folder toward the light. Her father's handwriting crossed the margin. Small, precise, the same hand that had signed her school forms. Beside a column of dates, he'd written a single word she couldn't read and underlined it twice. Daniel didn't come back just for me, she said. The understanding arrived cold and complete. He found something of my father's. He thinks I have it. So does someone here, Seo Jin said. She closed the folder. Her hands were steady, which surprised her. Somewhere above them, in a building full of glass and marble, a person she passed in the hall each morning had sold her hours to the man who'd hunted her across an ocean. She tried to fit a face to it, and couldn't. "Who has access to my schedule?" she asked. "Fewer than you'd think." Seo Jin's jaw tightened. "That's the part I don't like." Upstairs, the trust she'd built for 2 years came apart in an afternoon. Min Jae had gone quiet, a different quiet than his usual one. He stopped, leaving the door open. He read the archive file alone, late, and when she came in, he closed it. And the closing was a small betrayal that landed exactly where Daniel used to land. "You knew my father investigated yours," she said. "I didn't. You know now. And you're looking at me like I'm a plant." Her voice stayed level. "It cost her everything. Like somebody put me on your floor 2 years ago so I'd be sitting outside your door when it mattered." He didn't deny it fast enough. That was the wound. Not an accusation, a hesitation. 1 second where the man who noticed everything wondered if he'd been noticed first, if the woman who told him no had been placed there to earn exactly that much trust. "I'm trying to understand who turned you into a piece of this," he said. "That's not the same as—" "It's exactly the same." She was already pulling his logic apart because it was the only thing she could still control. "You're deciding what I am while you figure it out. Daniel decided what I was too. He just called it love." She left before he could answer. She didn't take the driver. She went home to the one place that was hers. The small apartment with the cream walls and the fresh flowers and the light that stayed warm. And she sat in it with the blinds up for the first time in weeks, because hiding hadn't saved her, and neither had trusting, and she was done choosing between 2 men's versions of her safety. She made a decision, small and entirely her own. She would find her father's file herself. Whatever he'd hidden, she would read it before anyone used it on her again. She pulled a box down from the top of her closet, the one she hadn't opened since the move, and set it on the counter. Old photographs, a watch that no longer ran, a folder of her father's papers she'd kept because throwing them out felt like burying him twice. She spread them under the kitchen light and started to read, looking for the word he'd underlined, the one she'd seen in his hand that afternoon. She never got the chance to look. The lock turned wrong at 1 a.m., a key that fit, which meant a key that had been copied. She was on her feet before the door opened. She reached the kitchen drawer. Daniel stepped into her warm light with a cast on one hand and grief on his face, and he looked, for 1 second, almost gentle. "I'm getting you out," he said, "before he does to you what he did to me. You broke into my home." "He's not a businessman, Jade." His voice shook with something that wasn't quite anger, something worse, something that believed itself. "The man you work for. Do you even know what he is? What his family is? I came here to protect. You and he had me beaten in the street like a dog. That wasn't him. You'd defend him." He almost smiled. "Of course you would. That's what he does. That's what men like him do. They make you grateful." She lunged for the drawer. He was faster, cast and all. 3 years of knowing exactly how she moved. His good arm came around her, a cloth, a chemical sweetness that closed her throat. She drove her elbow back and heard him grunt, and it wasn't enough. The warm room tilted. The flowers on the counter blurred to a smear of color. The last thing she saw before the dark took her was her own phone on the counter, face up for once, screen glowing, and no way in the world to reach it. Then nothing. When Min-jae reached her building an hour later, because he'd finally decided that being wrong about trusting her was better than being right about losing her, the door stood open and the warm light was still on, and the kitchen drawer hung out from the counter. The apartment was empty. On the floor, where it had fallen and skidded under the table, her phone lay dark now, the battery spent from glowing all that time at a ceiling nobody was there to see. Seisho Jin found the leak before dawn. He laid it on Min-jae's desk, without a word, a call log, a copied keycard, and a signature routing Jade's private schedule out of the building through the legal department's server. The account belonged to Lee Hyun-woo. Min-jae read it once. His hand touched the desk, twice, though this time it wasn't a lie he was telling. "He served my father for 30 years, he said. He thinks the chair should have been his to hold until you grew into it." Seo Jin's voice was flat. Foster was a tool. Hyun-woo used him to surface the Mueller file. Enough dirt on the Kang name to force you out and put a regent in your place. He never planned for Foster to go off the leash and take the woman. Where? The old warehouse. Incheon. Foster's using our own dock to hide in. He thinks he's hiding. From us. Min-jae was already moving. At the port, the rain came down in sheets, drumming the containers, sheeting off the concrete in the industrial light. Inside the warehouse, Daniel had built a small circle of clarity. A lamp, a chair, and Jade in it, wrists bound, jaw aching, entirely awake. "When your head clears, you'll understand," Daniel was saying. He paced the wet floor, cast held to his chest. "I'm the only one who ever told you the truth. He uses you. I love you. There's a difference, and you were always too stubborn to see it." Jade had spent the last hour doing the only thing left to her, listening, watching, learning the room, the loose bolt in the chair's arm she'd been working since she woke, the pallet of packing straps 6 feet to her left, the door Daniel kept glancing at because he was more afraid of what might come through it than of her. She stopped fighting the fear and started using it. Every time he turned to pace, she worked the bolt another quarter turn against the edge of the seat. She measured his circuit, 6 steps out, 6 steps back, a glance at the door on every return. She counted the seconds his eyes left her. She had maybe 2. "You're right," she said. Daniel turned, startled by agreement. "What?" "Come untie me." She let her voice go small, the voice he'd trained her to use, the one that meant she'd given up. "I can't think like this. Please." He came. Of course he came. He'd always mistaken her surrender for the real thing. The second his good hand reached her wrist, she drove the loosened chair arm up into his cast, and he screamed, and she was out of the chair and moving. She didn't run for the exit, she ran for the pallet, dragged the loop of packing strap off it, and put a stack of steel between them, the way a woman plans an escape when she's already decided no one is coming to make it for her. She was the one who created the opening. Min-jae finished it. He came through the dock door out of the rain with Seo Jin behind him, and he crossed the warehouse without hurry even now, and when Daniel lunged from the dark with a length of pipe, Min-jae stepped inside it, took his wrist, and put him down onto the wet concrete with a single economical motion. Not rage, not a beating, just the end of a thing that had gone on too long. Hyun-woo arrived last, in a dry coat, expecting a cleanup. He found his president standing over his tool and his plan lying on the floor in the rain. "You're too young for this," Hyun-woo said, because he had nothing else. And yet, Min-jae didn't look at him. "The file goes to the auditors. All of it. Foster goes to the police, and you go to the board, with your own signature on the routing logs." He finally turned. You built this on a dead man's work. His daughter is the one taking it apart. Jade stood in the industrial light with the packing strap still in her hand, wet through, breathing hard, and no one in that warehouse was deciding anything for her. The evidence her father hid put Daniel in a cell and Hyun Woo in front of the law. Min Jae never touched either of them again. He didn't need to. 2 weeks later, she put a letter on his desk. He read it in silence. She thought the silence meant anger. "You want to leave?" he said. "I want to find out who we are when I don't work for you." He set the letter down. He picked up his pen. He signed it. She stared at him. "Then find out," he said. She left Miran Holdings with no speech and no kiss and no promise. For a few weeks, they barely crossed paths. She slept with the blinds up. She sang badly in her own kitchen. She stopped looking back before the car. Then, one evening, she walked into a small restaurant near her apartment, and Min Jae was already there. No driver, no Seo-jin at the door, no glass wall between them. "Are you following me now?" "No, Sophia told me you'd be here." She narrowed her eyes. That's still concerning. And for the first time since she'd known him, Kang Min Jae smiled all the way. "Can I start over?" She waited. "Jade Muller, would you have dinner with me?" He wasn't her boss. She wasn't his secretary. And for the first time since the whole thing began, the choice was entirely, only, hers. She sat down. "One dinner. I can work with that." If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever mistaken someone controlling your life for someone protecting it, and only understood the difference long after? When someone finally offered you a choice instead of a leash, did you know how to take it? Have you ever had to become your own rescue while everyone argued over what was best for you? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about freedom, dignity, and dangerous love, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.